Good afternoon. I've just finished reading The Interruption of Everything by Terry McMillan, and I guess this makes it family relationship type book number 4, although I think I'll probably be switching to a different genre for a bit after this. So the main character, Marilyn, lives in California, and she's coming up on her mid-40s and about to face some pretty major changes in her life. Like, all 3 of her kids are in college or graduating, and at least one of them has a family of her own already. So she's coming to the point where she feels like maybe she can finally start living her life for herself, but at the same time she needs to figure out what that's going to look like and what she actually wants. Like, in some ways, Marilyn feels like she spent so much time focusing on trying to be a good mom and a good wife that she's, in a sense, kind of forgotten who she was. Like, she now feels a little bit like she put a lot of herself and her own dreams on hold when she got married and had kids. But, moving on and finding a new chapter, I suppose, isn't turning out to be quite as easy as one might hope. And, that saying about when it rains, it pours, it pretty much describes how this episode of her life is going. Like, both she and her husband are hitting, like, their respective versions of a midlife crisis. Like, her husband's not happy with his job. She suspects that he's having an affair. She kind of, maybe wants to re-pursue her dreams of going to art school, as she's always been really interested in, like, handicraft stuff. Like, it makes her happy, but she's also really afraid that, she won't get in, or she's not really sure what she would, do with it, I guess, in the long run. And though her friends are very encouraging, she's dealing with changes in herself that her friends suggest might be menopause and that she might need to go see a doctor about it. But she discovers that even though she thought taking care of kids in her life, like, that period of her life was over, she might actually have gotten pregnant, and that throws, like, an entire wrench in her plans where she has to really think about how things are going to go. And then her mother is starting to show signs that she fears might be Alzheimer's, like watering her fake plants and not recognizing people or forgetting things that, happened not so long ago. So she has to, deal with that, along with trying to handle her foster sister, who was the one who was looking after her mom, but, also has kids of her own that the main character is not entirely certain she's raising properly, I guess. And, well, like I said, there's a lot going on in her life, and this story follows, like, all these events that are going on as she tries to figure out what she wants to do with herself from now on, and along the way she comes to some realizations about being a mom and also being able to preserve, like, a sense of self even while being someone who provides a lot of care to other people. Like, because she starts off with dealing with these feelings of not being appreciated and not being seen for herself. But at the same time, she kind of has to acknowledge that maybe there were things that she didn't have to give up that she gave up, and maybe if she handled things a little differently, like, she could have pursued, continue to pursue her dreams and stuff while still retaining, still being, like, a responsible mother and stuff like that. So yeah, something that I liked. There was a lot of good dialogue in this book. Like, it was definitely dialogue heavy, even though it was written from first person. Like, obviously, first person books, you will always spend quite a bit of time in the characters' heads, but there was a lot of, like, both meaningful, fun, and frivolous conversations with all the other characters, because there were, like, a lot of other characters. Like, there was her 3 kids, like, she has twin sons and a daughter who's also married and has a kid and a baby on the way. There's her 2 best friends who are, like, extremely supportive, but are also dealing with issues of their own, like a son who's just got out of jail, and the possible girlfriend, possible grandchildren that have been bothering her that she has to handle. There's the hairdresser that she goes to see. Oh yeah, and her mother-in-law is living with her, and the husband, the well, yeah, anyways, ex-husband also, because she was previously married. Like, there's a lot of characters in the story, so like a lot of life being lived, I guess. And like I said, there's a pretty big amount of dialogue in comparison with the time that you spend in her head. Something I did not like. There actually wasn't really anything I didn't like about this story, so maybe just one thing that I might like to be prepared for if I was suggesting it to Elena. Like, it started off being pretty funny, and I was expecting it to be fairly humorous. Like, I really liked near the beginning where she described how like she couldn't really remember like what she studied in college, so she said that her college, like in her memory, might as well have been like Introduction to Husband 101, and things like that I found amusing. But in the long run, like the story itself was much more serious than I was anticipating. Like the where you're dealing with very serious, life-changing kind of events in people's day-to-day existence, I guess. So it turned out to be maybe not quite as fun or funny as I was hoping for, even though it did turn out to be an enjoyable and meaningful read.